Hello and welcome to ETBFSI Virtual Summit. In this special Fireside Chat discussion, we are going to focus on as to how businesses can secure and assure real-time communication anywhere from on-prem or to the cloud, despite where they are hosting their communication solution. To lead the discussion, I am joined by Mr. Justin Hart, Chief Technology Officer for Ribbon Communications. Mr. Justin, thank you for joining us today. Let me begin by asking you what we are observing during the pandemic that COVID has accelerated the need to support flexible and hybrid work. And communication model is also trying to adjust with that. Given the fact that the organization are using both type of on-prem as well as public cloud services to deliver their services, what kind of new challenges you are witnessing? If you could share based on your experience as to what kind of new trend you are witnessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to meet you and speak with you today. So over the last 12 months, predominantly of the COVID era, we've noticed two main trends. One is clearly a massive increase in working from home. People have been asked by their governments and businesses to work from home, which has forced IT departments and telecommunication carriers to quickly scramble to build capacity to be able to deal with an on-ramp of a lot more voice and video communications coming into their networks, often cloud hosted as a service to make that time interval as short as possible. But also we've seen just internally within the community, within the corporate environment, within the enterprise environment, a similar increase in communications. People aren't being able to travel between sites to meet. So even if they're able to work from the office, they're having to work from the office and then communicate with their colleagues remotely. So we've seen a huge increase, and we've had to really focus on being able to help support our customer base be agile to turn up that capacity quickly.
Absolutely. What we also observe is during the first wave, which happened a few months back, that business continuity was one of the biggest challenge for most of the businesses. And there actually organizations were looking to ensure that they are able to provide enterprise grade security for employees who are working from home. So I would like to understand from you, what are the challenges with the reacting quickly and securely to shift work models, and how do you turn up remote access to real-time communication for, let's say, if an organization having thousands of employees, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So clearly security is paramount in any environment, right? And more so if you're working in some of the critical infrastructure businesses or high finance businesses, so which is many of our core customers. And so we had a very clear steer that as we did this, we had to work with them to make sure we ensured security. Now, from our business point of view, voice of UC communications is really secured by the session border controller. That's really your edge of the network and secures the infrastructure coming in and out of your environment. So what does that mean when you move to a work from home environment? Well, what it means is you need to be able to ensure that you can greatly increase the capacity of new sessions coming into your corporate environment from external sources, secure that in real time. So we worked closely with our partners to build a cloud agile SBC that could be quickly spun up and elastically scaled within a public cloud or private cloud environment to allow them to very quickly on-ramp very large capacity of additional ingress sessions from an external source, coupled with additional security platforms we provided as well to ensure that the real-time traffic wasn't subject to fraud and other issues.
We also observe the fact that the data center where a lot of activity is happening, that is highly heterogeneous. I mean, you have some workload which is on-prem, especially where you're too concerned about security, and some of the workload are there in the public cloud, something in the private cloud. So what we are looking at a heterogeneous environment, a working environment, and they're actually having an integrated security becomes quite challenging, and every organization wants to deliver a kind of console level of security. Could you tell us, based on your experience, as to how you are ensuring that kind of security to your customer, and what is your general assessment of security challenge during the pandemic?
Yes, So again, great question. So first of all, we started by making sure that our session border controller was the same code base, whether you're running it on premise or in the cloud. So we put a lot of engineering work to ensure that it was providing the same level of security, whether you're running it in a private data center or whether it's in a public cloud. And that was actually quite a lot of investment on our side to make sure we can achieve that. But that also allows us to give a customer confidence they've got the same kind of security posture, irrespective of whether that traffic's coming into the premise environment or cloud environment. Then further on top of that, we introduced a few years back our analytics portfolio, which really became beneficial to us during this COVID era, because that allowed us to provide insights across that entire mixed environment. It allowed us to pull information, logs, data, flows from both on-prem and cloud environment equipment, and to collect that together in a large data, in a big data database to allow us to do analytics and security screening of that, which gave our customers more confidence that irrespective of wherever the traffic was coming from, they were able to audit it and verify that it was the traffic they wanted within their environment. So as I said earlier in my previous comments, we did a lot of work to make sure the experience was the same across those environments, and then we could aggregate data across both those environments. But the other thing we did is we made sure that both enterprise and carriers were able to spin up as small or as large instances of the security systems as they needed, to ensure that if they wanted to have very small instances for single sites or larger sites, they could be efficient with that software. And that allowed them to have confidence that they could scale appropriately for whatever environment they were in.
Right. Businesses during the pandemic, we saw they were also struggling with a kind of, they were on the analytical part. How do you analyze the effectiveness of your communication? What is the level of the quality that you are delivering? Because people are working from home, and there are a lot of parameters that you are not able to judge it, given the fact that most of the things are happening on internet. So how do you do that? If you could share something based on your experience.
Yeah, so if I can, I'd like to use Microsoft Teams as a good example of that, right? So we're a close partner of Microsoft and work closely with them on their Teams rollout, and obviously that was one of the key business enablement tools during this era. They experienced massive growth. So one of the things we did is we worked with them closely to integrate the quality of service analytics from their experience of their part of the team's call flow and our part of the team's call flow. We brought that together so you could get more of an end-to-end view of what a end user was experienced. And the power of that is it no longer therefore matters whether that end user is within a premise environment or at home, because the analytics can stretch across those environments. And that allowed both Microsoft and the IT partners they were working with within the enterprise to get genuine visibility into whether issues were within the corporate infrastructure, not scaling appropriately, or within the data center, or within the end user's home environment, having some problem with, perhaps they're in an environment where the broadband isn't great.
And what are your views on the edge, managing the edge part of our communication? What we are witnessing, there are a lot of things happening on the edge, and organizations are trying to actually analyze those data at the edge itself rather than actually going forth and back into the data center. And communication service provider like you, especially, which provide a lot of service based on the IP, have high upper hand in this technology. If you could share something based on your experience, how Ribbons actually looks at the modernization of edge for communication.
We have different solutions for different size points. We definitely have solutions designed for the edge environment. And what we've done there is we've instrumented that code with additional capture so that we can capture more information about what's happening within that environment. So not just the usual statistics around calls and things like that, but also the quality of service of the actual bandwidth we're using and whether that's an appropriate level to support a UC or VoIP call or video call. And then what we can do is we can pass that information back through a secure connection to a cloud-based analytics system, which can then aggregate that across many different sites or many different end users and provide visibility to the environment, visibility of the environment to the enterprise or carrier that's hosting that. We found that particularly useful in this environment because we have had huge numbers of home workers suddenly trying to work from all sorts of different bandwidth environments, from very rich countries to more emerging countries, and a real mixture of different circumstances that people have been trying to work from. And it's been really key to get really good insights into how the systems are behaving all the way from the edge to the core in order to be able to support our customers.
This will be the last question of mine. Given the increasing attack surface, because what you said earlier that during the pandemic, technological acceleration has increased, and what it has done, it has also increased a vector surface for
it has, yeah.
cybersecurity, people actually who have to manage it. How do we ensure that your organization is safe and secure? You create an ecosystem and environment where security is embedded. But given the fact that the attack surface has really increased during the pandemic, what are the things that organizations should focus on to ensure that there is an optimal level of security?
That's a multifaceted question. It goes all the way from how do you secure against ransomware through to fraud, and has many different components to it. But from the voice and UC perspective, the key really is understanding the types of sessions you're letting into and out of your network, and understanding whether those sessions really are appropriate for your communications environment. And that starts from getting a better understanding of just the users that are using the network, the types of traffic that they're using. And you can get that from analyzing the data that's passing through the border control elements. But what you quickly find is that becomes a scaling problem, right? You have, in a very large organization, you might have tens of thousands of users now trying to use these networks. And how do you manage understanding the data that's coming from all those flows? That's where machine learning and big data really starts to take hold. And what we've done is we've really focused on investing in bringing that data to a place where you can aggregate, collect the information, then train ML algorithms to try to spot whether there's erroneous trends, whether there's patterns that don't make sense for your particular environment, right? So these are customized based on your particular environment, which allows you to create baselines and understand whether that is trending to normal or whether you're seeing stuff happening that's outside of your expectations. And at that point, you can then start to do mitigation within the network. So you can then automate, for example, closing down particular sessions or pinholes or firewall in rules. And by doing that closed loop, you can start to automate some of this process, which is really the end game. But on the way through that, the first piece is to get really good insights into what's going on within the network. And then secondarily, using machine learning and AI to really train how to spot what's going wrong within the network.
Mr. Justin Hart, thank you so much for sharing your views as to how businesses can secure and assure real-time communication, anywhere from cloud or maybe on-prem, wherever they have hosted their solution and services. Your views on security, especially as to how the businesses could mitigate the challenge of security during the time of pandemic, which has become quite important. On behalf of ETBFS, we once again thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you very much for having me this morning. It's been great to meet you, and thank you for the great questions.